chapter 8 this week, starting Daniel chapter 8. And this chapter contains an account of another vision seen by the prophet Daniel. And it's in the third year of the reign of Belshazzar. Now, chapter 7 was in the first year of Belshazzar. And we don't know how chapter 5 also starts in the third year of the reign of Belshazzar. So we don't know exactly how close the events in chapter 8 and the events in chapter 5, which we will be doing. Actually, as soon as we finish chapter 8, we'll move back to chapter 5, since we're going around kind of chronologically. We don't know how close this vision is to the events of chapter 5. Verse 1, in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me. Another vision, kind of similar to the vision in chapter 7. And we don't know. It isn't said, was this a vision? In chapter says in chapter 7, it was visions upon, of his head upon his bed, then he wrote the dream. Okay? And we don't know if this is a similar dream that he had on his bed or some other way. You know, God imparts visions to his prophets in many different ways. So we don't know which way this was. Appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Okay? So similar type vision. Okay? And again, we don't know a lot of, except what's told here, how or when this vision occurred, or even where. Okay? Now, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, and behold, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace. Okay? Shushan was capital city, and it became the capital city of the Medo-Persian Empire, and the capital city of the Persian Empire later on. And it was in the time of King Belshazzar, it was his capital city. This was the palace, and he either in his vision he appeared. He saw in his vision that he was in the capital city, the palace at Shushan. But we also, have kind of a evidence that maybe he was actually in the city when the vision happened. Okay, there's very probably, we can suppose that he was there. And it's thought that he may have been at this time. Well, at this time, again, he's in his 80s, 80 something. Okay, and so whether he has retired from his government job, whether he still has his government job, whether he's still advising the government in some way, we don't know. Okay? He may have been unconnected with the government, or not employed by the government. We get this kind of hint in chapter 5 when Belshazzar sees the handwriting on the wall. That it was mentioned by the queen mother at the time, that he saw this handwriting on the wall, and he's afraid and what's going on here. But it was mentioned, oh, remember this guy Daniel? Did they not remember Daniel at the time? Did Belshazzar not have a remembrance, or because he was so shaken up by this what he saw, that he did not remember that there was a man in the kingdom who could interpret dreams? Okay. Probably it may be because it had been such a long time when Belshazzar would have been Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, if I remember right. But, it would have been a long time since Nebuchadnezzar had his dream and it was interpreted. So maybe nobody remembered that Daniel was an interpreter of dreams. Right? So there's that thought that because of that suggestion in chapter 5, that he was not connected or not employed by the government. Okay, but it's also reasonable to suppose that he would be at liberty to visit. He pretty much has the freedom, if you will, even though he still is a Jewish slave in Babylon, right? But he still has that freedom and that liberty to visit other parts of the kingdom at the time. There may have been Jewish people at the place, at the palace. He may have gone there to visit, or perhaps because the scene of the vision was laid at Shushan. He was there. When he was there, that's when the vision happened. So, again, we can conjecture. We don't know exactly for sure. So, but in the vision, he was at Shushan in the palace, okay, which is in the province of Elam. Okay? And now, Shushan, or Susa, I think the modern town, well, apparently there isn't very much left of the modern town. The city of Susa, or Shush, Susa, Shush, we've got several different names of it here. It's now kind of a gloomy wilderness and inhabited by wild beasts and prey, and inhabited by archaeologists. There are extensive ruins at the Susa, Shushan, and Shushan was the capital of Persia after the time of Cyrus, and the kings had their principal residence, and some of the kings of Persia, would use it as their summer home. They'd go someplace else for the fall or spring, and then someplace else for the winter. When you're a king, you've got palaces all over the place, and you go wherever the weather is nice, whether it's cool or whatever. But Shushan was principal residence of the kings of Persia. Again, extensive ruins, and they kind of stretch 12 miles. This is a large town. These ruins, Shushan would have been a large town, 12 miles from one extremity to the other. Okay? And they're, like other ruins, they build a house out of mud bricks, and over time the weather erodes them, and the ruins sort of turn into piles of hillocks of earth, piles of rubble, and somebody else comes along and builds something else on top of whatever, and broken pieces of brick and tile and all of that sort of stuff. The archaeologists' paradise, finding all sorts of stuff. Okay? And apparently there's one of these mounds there in this this Susa, Shushan, okay? At the foot of one of these mounds, okay, is the so-called tomb of Daniel, okay? And it's a small building, and it's erected on the spot where the remains of Daniel are believed in that region to rest, okay? The only trouble is the building is fairly modern, you know. And there's nothing but the, you know, somebody built a little building and decided to call it Daniel's Tomb, probably for the tourists, you know. Like apparently the cabin that Abraham Lincoln built or was born in, you know, they've got it in a museum someplace, and it never was the cabin where he was born, you know. Somebody just came up with this, found an old cabin somewhere close to where Abraham Lincoln might have been born, and oh, hey, this has got to be it. So yeah, we'll turn it into. So that's, you know, probably similar what happened. I'm sure the archaeologists have checked out this building, and, you know, who knows, but you know, again, it's for the tourists. They believe, oh, here's Daniel's tomb. Okay. And like I said, this city, this mound now is wilderness. And again, so we've got this summer palace. You know, they'd pass spring in another town, autumn and winter in Babylon, and you know, and actually, it was also the city, in this city, Shushan, later on, that Alexander the Great married Stateria, daughter of Darius Codomanus. Okay, so Alexander the Great got married in Shushan, and gee, you know, we find out a little bit later in the chapter that that this, you know, when this gets explained to him, sort of, that you know, of course, Alexander and the Grecian Empire came in, and, you know, the Greeks came in and conquered all of this also. So there are connections here. Okay, we've got the capital at the time of Belshazzar, the capital or the if you will, the summer home or whatever of Belshazzar, of the Babylonian Empire. Okay? The Medes and the Persians will very soon be coming in and conquering with Cyrus, coming in and conquering and taking over Babylon. Okay? And then eventually the Persians will take over, and then the Greeks come in under Alexander. And of course, in between that and Alexander, and we've got Xerxes, you know, conquering Greece and all of that sort of stuff. So, anyway, so he was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Okay. Yeah, however you want to pronounce it. Ulai, yeah. Okay. And this province, the province of Elam, was bounded on the east by Persia proper, okay, on the west by Babylonia, stuck right in the middle, okay, on the north by Media, and on the south by the Persian Gulf. Okay, you got all of that pictured in your head on your geography maps that are right. You can picture all of that. Okay. and and the province was about half as large as Persia at the time, not quite as large as England. Okay, so you can get a kind of a idea there, and it was most likely conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. And in the time of Belshazzar was subject to Babylonian domination. Shushan had doubtless been the capital of the kingdom of Elam, while it was its own separate kingdom. All these provinces of these empires were actually their own separate kingdoms. They had their own kings, and then they get conquered by bigger king, more powerful king, and they become part of an empire. And that's what happened. And it remained the capital of the province while it was under Babylonian rule, and until it was subdued as part of the empire by Cyrus. Okay? And then made one of the capitals of the united Medo-Persian Empire. Okay? So, by the river Ulai, and this river flowed by the city of Shushan, and fell in actually this river eventually empties into the Tigris and Euphrates, into the combined stream of the Tigris and the Euphrates. And so here he is. I lifted up mine eyes and saw. Okay? He's there. Lift up his eyes. He sees something coming. And behold, there stood before the river a ram which had two horns. So we've got this ram, male goat, male whatever species it was, male sheep, but it had two horns. You can imagine, I guess the mountain goats that we have down, or whatever they are, down the canyon, the Yakima Canyon, sheep? Yeah. I've never, all the time I've lived here, and the time that ever went down the Yakima, I've never seen these wild sheep in the canyon. I've never seen them. Lived here since 1959. That was the main road to get to Yakima until whenever the freeway was built, 1960 to 70, somewhere around in there. 1970, I think, was when the freeway over, 82 over. But all that time, had to travel that way to get to Yakima, and never saw these goats. Well, yeah, in those days, I think the speed limit was 50 or 60, and in those days, of course, that was kind of in my high school years, and one of the favorite sports of the Ellensburg High School kids in the 60s, before the freeway was built, was to see how fast they could get from here to Yakima on the Canyon Road. And I'm not sure, but I think they could do it in 20 minutes or less. They were moving, yeah. But anyway, so here now he's seeing, this ram, if you will, a Babylonian style Middle East ram, had two horns, with the, they might have been the curly horns that we see. We don't know. Had two horns. The two horns were high. These were, they were long. They were big. Okay, this would have been a trophy. If you were a hunter and you were out looking for a ram with a, this would have been a trophy. This would have been something you would have stuffed and mounted on your wall. Okay, but it's a vision. Okay? The two horns were high, but one was higher than the other. Okay? One of the horns was longer than the other one, was bigger, okay? If you will, more powerful. If you equate horns with power, and the Bible does that a lot, horns with power, okay? One horn, they were both powerful, but one horn was more powerful than the other. One was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. It's kind of, again, this picture of he could actually see these horns growing on this ram, in the vision. As he's seeing the vision, he could actually see them grow, and he sees this one growing higher, and it came up after the first one. Right? And that's where I'm going to leave you, the cliffhanger this week, and continue next week.